Hi, this is Eternal King bringing you another LOR video today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the best ways to counter aggro in Eternal. It is something that I see opponents struggle with quite a bit. And so I kind of want to talk about leveraging some of the tools that work, some of the tools that don't work, things of that nature. So starting out, typically people respond to aggro in two exceptionally straightforward ways. The first way is ping spam. So if we just go deal damage, okay, that won't work. Then we just look up deal and then we look up spells. And we should get everything that deals damage. Yep, there we go, that works. So the first idea of dealing with aggro, and meta decks like Ziggs Poppy, there are a lot of good aggro lists in Eternal, just like there's a lot of good aggro lists in Standard. But typically the ones in Eternal are more powerful. They're higher on the power scale. So things like ping spam is kind of something that people think about quite a bit. So just run one damage pings. Run a deck of parlay, plus group shot, plus pie toss, plus whatever else you can think of. The big problem with running a deck of nothing but one damage pings is that most decent aggro decks actually have quite a bit of board sustainability. So Ziggs Poppy is a great example. A lot of the units have a 2-3 stat line, and they're basically immune to ping damage at that point. One damage ping specifically, and 2 damage pings. So again, if a lot of the units are 2-3s, what is the best way of kind of dealing with them? Well, things like Flock. Flock is a great way to sort of cash in on pings. Rather than just having the pings by themselves, you have a way to cash in on the ping that is cheap and only 1 mana. So all of a sudden, running Pie Toss, Pie Toss, I would probably never run Pie Toss without Ravenous Flock, just me personally, in terms of a deck. Like, yes, Pie Toss in certain instances will seem like an MVP card, like it's very, very good. But without a way to cash out on it in Eternal, all of a sudden that Pie Toss is killing a Ziggs, for example, that has 4 health. It is so much better. It is so much better. I can't even, talk about how much stronger it is. So again, having ways to cash out on your pings is very strong. Another common route when it comes to dealing with kind of Ziggs Poppy, which spams the board hard, is basically spamming the board harder with cyclers. A little problematic because Decimate exists in Eternal. One of the things that I like to do as perhaps one of the top aggro players in the Eternal format is essentially fake out board spam. So what you do is you actually slow roll the deck and you just allow yourself to accumulate decimates in hand, and all of a sudden your opponent's strategy of running nothing but board interaction is actually severely weakened by the fact that you have 12 burn in hand and the opponent's not presenting any sort of board pressure of their own, so you can just decimate, and there's nothing they can do. So again, that's another thing where the pings are kind of failing you in the instance that all you're running is ways to interact with the opponent's board. Because yes, that's good into very specific hand states of kind of Ziggs Poppy, Azir Aurelia, but potentially not as good into other hand states. The other thing is kind of cheap AoE solutions. Instead of running like a Pie Toss, you can run a Make It Rain, combine it with kegs, and all of a sudden the Make It Rain is presenting potentially 3 damage because you're synergizing it with keg spam. That Make It Rain is going to be stonks for you in the aggro matchup. So people kind of forget this stuff. This is like old school LOR, but yeah, the flocks, the kegs, Falling Star, dealing 4 to an enemy that attacked this round, that's great. Like, that's just like free removal. Obviously Hate Spike is good because it's 3 damage. Drop the Bomb's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. I think Nora Swain runs it because they just don't have any other decent options. But yeah, simply running Mystic Shot, simply running High Note, and then, Pokey Stick, for example, and calling that a deck isn't going to quite get you there most of the time into Ziggs Poppy. Thermo's decent. I'm a big fan of Thermo in PNZ. I think Thermo's good. Another card that I like quite a bit, you know, people run Aftershock, sure, but you know, do they run the 6 mana card, which is dealing basically it's double Aftershock, Shock Blast. You know, very efficient for dealing with mid-range threats. If you have any way to bank spell mana, you know, reliably, just commit the Shock Blast, right? Killing like a Bandle City Mayor, plus plus the 2 mana card, the Stone Stackers. Killing that for 6 mana is like stonks for a control deck. I've played, you know, Ezreal Morgana, and I've run like 3 copies of Shock Blast because this card is like, in terms of the you know, power scale of control decks, and Eternal Shock Blast is very high. Very underrated card, only run in Lux Jayce, but like it's very, very good for what it does. You know, Hex Obliterator not so much. Monster Harpoon's pretty bad. Sunburst is very good. So I'm just kind of running through the control cards that I think are decent. Sunburst is very strong. Kind of just like a 5-mana Vengeance. At slow speed is good enough a lot of the time. I've seen some people run Rocket Barrage. It's not bad, actually. You know, it's kind of like a surprise card that you can run in PNZ. I don't love it, but it's in certain situations, if you're just like really hungry for that anti-aggro tech in PNZ, Rocket Barrage isn't bad. And then, yeah, you know, in Shadow Isles, you have your Withering Whales, the Box, Static Shock, Caustic Rift isn't bad. Obviously, Avalanche is pretty, you know, staple. Freljord card. Some Fumes is good if you have the synergy and you're constantly drawing cards. Rite of the Arcane is pretty good. So a lot of it just comes down to like choosing the right removal options. Death's Grasp. So yeah, a lot of it just comes down to choosing the right removal options. Simply being like, okay, I'm going to run Pokey Stick, Mystic Shot, and High Note in, you know, a PNZ Bandle shell, and then just run a bunch of Cyclers. It's usually not good enough to get you there. So, and then you just kind of run the 7-mana card, which gives you more pings. So it's just like nothing but pings. It doesn't quite get there because the opponent can, if they know what you're playing, essentially fake you out with a Decimate heavy hand, and now you have no board pressure and handful of pings, and they're just gonna like, well, I've already got 2 Decimates, I swung on turn 1 for damage, now, you know, I'm basically applying a ton of burn pressure, and if you don't have the answers, that's very problematic. So yeah, they can just keep a Decimate heavy hand if they know what you're doing. The other thing is healing, right? Healing is very, you know, very, very good into an aggro matchup. But I wouldn't say healing by itself. It's more so sustained healing. So sustained healing being, I just put in heal. It's a little tricky with the keywords. Heal. Yeah. You know, Kindly Tavern Keeper is just really good hard tech into an aggro matchup if you're Freljord. I think that Grappler was running this in his Nora Braum deck. Like, he was just hard teching the Tavern Keeper, and that was stonks. You know, Guiding Touch being a cycle with healing is very, very good. Cosmic Youngling being sustained healing. Cosmic Youngling is like one of the most irritating healing cards in the game. So it's amazing. Like, in a good way. It's a very, very good card. 4-1 stat lines are very, very good as well. So you have things like 5-punch Pablo. In deep, I actually run Mega Tusk. You have Smooth Mixologist, Broadback Protector, this ramp card, Dragon Worshipper dude. There's actually a lot of healing in this game that is, you know, available should you want to tech it. Hearthblood for Jax decks, Catalyst for ramp decks. So again, I'm not saying that all of these cards are must-haves. You don't just jam them in your deck without thinking, but they're valid tech options that you should consider, because the only counter to burn is healing. And, you know, while board pressure has a lot of different counters, you have AoEs, you have pings, you have board spam, you know, so when it comes to the Ziggs Poppy style of board aggression, there's just a lot of stuff that you can do to deal with that. There's a lot of flexibility there. But when it comes to burn, there's not as much flexibility. So, you know, hard teching the healing, pretty solid option. You probably won't regret it in a lot of cases. Obviously, Explore cards can get you healing, but it's a weak heal. You know, it's only the 2 mana. I find most of the time when people hard tech explorers and they just play, you know, the 2 mana and then the 2 mana heal, it's not great for them. So again, you know, hard teching the healing instead of going for the explore card is definitely worthwhile. Um, and obviously this heals as well, Innovative Blacksmith. Yeah, there's a lot of decent healing in this game. Don't just run the explore cards, hard tech the healing, and I think you're going to find yourself having a better time. You know, if you want to run a slow Ionia deck, 3 Mixologists, just jam it in there. You know, Freljord, Blighted Ravine is a 3 of, pretty much mandatory. You want to go even harder? Yeah, you could do the Tavern Keeper. Like, you'll just auto-win certain matchups. If that's what you're struggling with, the options are there in the game. And that is the great thing about, you know, Eternal that I like more than Standard. In Standard, the answers are typically board spam and open attack for every single solution to every single deck. You know, even something as simple as Ziggs Poppy, you know, there are different ways to pilot the deck. There are, depending on the game situation, and there are different ways to counter the deck depending on the game situation. It's not just a straight linear line, which is what makes Eternal very cool, right? I love playing Bandle City Mayor into the 7 mana Shark generator because it's actually really, really strong. You like all of a sudden you have a top end in a deck that isn't supposed to have a top end, and that really throws people off. You know, again, accumulating decimates, having a decimate heavy hand to throw the opponent off the board spam, or you know, again, sometimes you go in for the triple 1-drop scenario. Like that's very rarely wrong as well. Just like, okay, I'm gonna play Bird turn 1, and then you know 2 other 1-drops turn 2, and if I don't think your deck can support that, then that's going to be problematic for you. But what I'm saying is that it is flexible. You can play the mid-range game a little bit if you want to with Bandle City Mayor value. You can play the aggro game with this triple 1-drop. You can play the burn game with holding onto a decimate heavy hand if you think your opponent isn't hard teching the healing. So the best solution to beat such a, you know, reliable and durable and flexible deck is to build decks yourself that are reliable and durable and flexible. And if you know, go too far into the one-size-fits-all approach, you're probably going to lose. All right, this is Eternal King signing out.